Prohibition Era Speakeasy, a pink Mighty Morphin Power Ranger from the 90s, a World War I cootie card, cootie card, and some 18th century weaponry from the other side of the world. All that and more, right now. Here we are in the town of Barnstable, Massachusetts. We're going to be checking out the Centerville Historical Museum. Now, Centerville is one of the many villages that make up the town of Barnstable, and it has its own unique little history. As you can see behind me, there's this old country store that dates back to the year 1856, and it has been actually operating as a country store since that time. And behind me, you can see there's an old cemetery here. So we're going to take a quick walk through that as well. We'll probably find some headstones that date back to the 1800s, maybe even the 1700s. It's going to be cool. Let's check it out. Originally named Cotuit, meaning Pleasant Harbor, the village of Centerville is one of the 7 villages that makes up the town of Barnstable, Massachusetts, here on Cape Cod. In the year 1648, Miles Standish, who you may remember from my Oldest Cemetery in America video, traded the Wampanoag Indians 2 brass kettles and some fencing for a large area of land that now makes up the town of Barnstable. Other notable people from the town of Barnstable include Larry Page, who is the co-founder of Google, Tom Hamilton, the bass player for the band Aerosmith, Amy Jo Johnson, who was the original Pink Power Ranger, John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, and Jack Kerouac, novelist, poet, and artist. So we have a few minutes before the museum opens. Let's check out this country store. The store's history dates back to the year 1840, when it was built as a place to store cranberries after the harvest. In 1856, it became a general store and has remained so for more than 165 years. The 1856 country store is a beloved piece of Centerville and Cape Cod history. To this day, Centerville retains much of its 19th century charm. Main Street is lined with the homes of 18th and 19th century sea captains. The early 18th century settlers first built their homes around Lake Cotuit and took advantage of its fertile soil, fresh water, and fish. In the early 19th century, Cotuit experienced dramatic expansion and growth. The first post office was established in 1834, and the village's name was changed to Centerville. The village was aptly named for its central location in the town of Barnstable. As such, it held an important position in the town, serving as a crossroads and meeting place. So here we are at the museum. Now the left side of the house, where the sign is hanging, is the original home. It was built in the year 1854, and it was lived in by a woman named Mary Lincoln. Her father built the home, although she was the last surviving member of the family, and when she passed away in the year 1955, she donated the house to the Centerville Historical Society so they could open a museum. Renovations were made in later years to expand the museum, which has a total of 14 rooms, I believe. Here we are in the original part of the home. What a quaint little house. Mary lived in the upstairs room most of her life, but moved downstairs in later years as she grew older. This would have been her room towards the end of her life. They've done their best to maintain the Victorian style of the era, and there are plenty of display cases showcasing everyday items from the mid-1800s, including playing cards, silverware, things like that. Upstairs here, we see where Mary would have lived when she was younger. The sewing machine, I believe, is from the 1700s. As we head back downstairs here, we'll see a 20th century folding chair. And this room is dedicated to the speakeasies of the 1920s Prohibition era. On display here are some photos taken just across the street in the basement of another one of these historic homes, which was once a 1920s Prohibition era speakeasy. Wow, these are really cool. I wonder if little old Mary Lincoln ever dipped in there for a drink. It's right across the street. Here we can see the house as it stands today. The home itself was built in the early 1800s, but in the 1920s and 30s, in the basement was a Prohibition-era speakeasy. Can you imagine if these walls could talk? All right, from the speakeasy to the schoolhouse. This room represents a one-room schoolhouse from the mid-1800s. Here we see a list of rules that the teachers must abide by, dating from 1872. Men teachers may take one evening each week for courting purposes, or 2 evenings a week if they go to church regularly. Women teachers who marry or engage in unseemly conduct will be dismissed. And of course we have rules for the children as well. This list dates back to 1860. Boys shall remove their caps when entering. Children must not squirm, fidget, or whine. Young ladies must never show a bare ankle. Girls' and boys' clothing should cover arms and legs completely. And lastly, we have the punishments. A rap on the hands or knuckles with a steel-edged ruler. Wearing a dunce cap facing the room or sitting in a corner. 5 minutes tardy in the morning, 1 hour after school. Double assignments if homework is not done. Talking in class, 1 whack with a rod. Chewing of tobacco or spitting, 7 whacks with a rod. Wow. And here are some students from Centerville, circa 1913. No wonder why they don't look so happy. And a local school bus, known as a school barge, from 1908. So now we find ourselves in the basement of the museum, where there's a whole World War I display. Lots of interesting artifacts here as well, such as this World War I uniform. And of course these helmets from 4 different countries. First we have the German helmet. As we make our way around, the British World War I helmet. And of course here's the American version. And lastly, we have a French helmet. Alright, who remembers cooties? Well, did you know the lice of the World War I trenches were nicknamed cooties? And they were also known as the arithmetic bugs, because they added to our troubles, subtracted from our pleasures, divided our attention, and multiplied like hell. Now, the military order of the cootie are a group of men and women who are both veterans and members of the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars organization. Members are dedicated to helping hospitalized veterans and those who are sick or injured. Shown here is an application card to join the cooties. Just meet the aforementioned criteria, send in the application fee, and they will send you your hat and tassels. Who knew cooties could do so much good for so many veterans? Moving along, we're back upstairs now. Here's an interesting display. It's actually titled Pre-Viagra, although the title is a little misleading. It's actually an advertisement for a book about perfect manhood and the way to attain it. Let's read some of these tips. It explains how to build up all sexual vigor, how to build up all bodily vigor, how to preserve all mental vigor, how to avoid all the physical evils of married life, how to cure mind-wandering forgetfulness, confusion of ideas. That chapter may be for me. And it goes on and on. Now we're up here in the attic, where they have some old weaponry displayed from all around the world. On the bottom is a Kris-style dagger. The Kris is the most famous Moro, or Muslim Filipino weapon, and there are a number of variations found in every Moro tribe. In the middle, we have an 1800s scimitar, a single-edged sword with a convex curved blade associated with Middle Eastern, South Asian, or North African cultures. And on top, a Japanese-style short sword known as a tanto. And in this case, we have another 19th century scimitar from Turkey. And here, with the intricately designed handle, is a sword from the Philippines. Wow, look at all that detail. Well, that was an interesting little museum. There's a total of 14 rooms, and there's a lot more artifacts to look at. I just showed you a few of the favorites of mine. If you're ever on Cape Cod, I definitely recommend checking out the Centerville Historical Museum. Now, let's head back over by the country store to the cemetery behind that old church that was built in the year 1796. Alvin Crosby died May 15, 1894, aged 90 years and 11 months. So he would have been born in the year 1804. Melintha, widow of Ira Bierce, died September 1884, aged 79 years. And here we see Father James Lewis, who died August 10, 1880, at the age of 93 years, which means he would have been born in 1787, before the church was even built. There's lots of other really old headstones as well. Unfortunately, some of them are very difficult to read. Beautiful nonetheless. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. If so, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Once again, thanks for watching.